Music. I wanted children so much in my life that my whole concentration is on them. A woman who is attractive. What is it for you? An attractive woman for you. 2 weeks after glowing at Venice Film Festival, Sophia Loren was rushed into emergency surgery. The fall in her bathroom wasn't just a slip, but a devastating accident that broke multiple bones. Her agent's statement felt too careful when they said recovery would take time. Since then, fake death stories have flooded the internet while she stayed hidden from view. But if you watch the video carefully, you'll notice how tightly she grips her walking stick. Something has changed in the woman who once said age was just a number. Sofia Costanza Brita Villani Ciccolone was born on September 20th, 1934 in Rome under a cloud of shame. The hospital where she was delivered wasn't a regular one. It was meant for unwed mothers. In Catholic Italy during the 1930s, that alone made her birth a scandal. Her mother, Ramililda, was a beautiful woman who dreamed of acting and often got compared to Greta Garbo. But no matter her looks or talent, she couldn't hide the fact that her daughter had been born out of wedlock. That label followed Sophia for years. Even the hospital had a reputation. It was a place where society quietly sent its fallen women to give birth in secrecy. From her very first breath, Sophia's life was tangled in whispers and judgment. The man responsible for it all, Riccardo Colwan Murillo, didn't just walk away. He vanished. He worked for the National Railway for a time, but more importantly, he was already married. When he started seeing Ramilda, when she got pregnant, he refused to marry her or even stick around. He left Ramilda and the baby to fend for themselves. Sophia only saw her father 3 times. Once when she was 5, again at 17, and one last time in 1976 when he was on his deathbed. That final meeting was short. She told him she forgave him, but she never forgot what he had done. Even after she became one of the most famous actresses in the world, he showed no interest in being part of her life. And yet Sophia later did something strange. She claimed her father came from nobility. In her autobiography, she referred to herself with titles like Vic, Countess of Puteoli and Marchioness of Licata. Whether the claims were true or not didn't matter. It was a way of rewriting the story. Instead of being the unwanted child of a cheating man, she turned herself into someone with aristocratic blood. It was her way of turning pain into pride. The very man who rejected her became, in her words, the source of her dignity. It was like putting a crown on the head of a child who had once been ignored. The pain didn't stop with Sophia. In 1938, her younger sister Maria was born, and their father refused to even sign her birth certificate. That meant Maria had no legal claim to his name. The cruelty of that decision left a deep scar. When Sophia became successful, she used her money to buy something more important than fame. She paid Riccardo to legally recognize Maria. It was a quiet deal, but it meant everything. Maria could finally carry the Ciccolone name. Sophia wasn't just doing it for paperwork. She was doing it so her sister wouldn't have to grow up hearing cruel jokes or being reminded daily that their father had refused her. By the time the war ended, the family had been pushed to the edge. They moved back to Poti with nothing. Sophia's grandmother, Luisa, turned their living room into an illegal bar, selling homemade cherry liquor. This wasn't just a side hustle. It was how they survived. Rilda played the piano. Maria sang to keep customers entertained, and Sophia waited tables and washed dishes. She was barely a teenager, but she already knew what it meant to work for survival. The place filled up with American soldiers, mostly GIs stationed nearby. They brought in money, food, and stories from another world. One day in 1944, the war came crashing in again. Sophia was 10 when Allied planes bombed Poti. As people ran for shelter, a piece of shrapnel sliced into her chin. It left a permanent scar. She survived, but the trauma never left her. Even as an adult, she couldn't sleep in the dark. Throughout her acting career, makeup artists worked hard to hide the scar, but she always knew it was there. That moment, that explosion, that scar, it stayed with her, shaping not just her face, but her spirit. It gave her something to draw from in emotional film scenes, especially when she played women torn apart by war. The town of Poti was bombed repeatedly because it was near a military port and a munitions factory. Planes targeted the area again and again. People lived in fear every single day. When the bombs came, families ran to hide in train tunnels, dark, cold, and filled with rats. That's where Sophia spent many nights of her childhood, huddled in the dark, waiting for the explosions to stop. The volcano nearby, Solfatara, was another source of fear. People believed that if it was hit, the entire area would blow up. For 5 years, Sophia lived in constant fear, not just of war, but of complete destruction. After the shrapnel incident, her mother had had enough. She grabbed her 2 daughters and fled to Naples. They left everything behind. Once in the city, they had to beg distant relatives for a place to stay. It wasn't just uncomfortable, it was humiliating. Multiple families crammed into tiny apartments, everyone struggling to survive. Sophia saw her mother cry while asking for food and shelter. The girl who would one day win an Oscar was just another child without a home, watching her mother beg for mercy. By 1945, the war was over, but the damage was done. Their town was in ruins. Jobs were gone. Food was scarce. The illegal cherry liquor bar came back to life. Sophia, now 11, worked every day. She cleaned, served, and did whatever it took. Hunger was a daily problem. Sometimes all they had was dry bread. She went to bed with an empty stomach more nights than she could count. But even then, she learned to survive. The adults around her were loud, drunk, and rough, but she learned how to handle them. That toughness would later help her deal with agents, producers, and all the pressures of fame. She was only 14, a skinny, shy teenager from a bombed-out town near Naples. But when Sophia Loren stepped into that beauty contest in 1950, something shifted. She wasn't even using her real name. She called herself Sophia Loren and wore the sash for late show. Candidate number 2. Nobody expected much. Yet somehow she made it to the top 3. She didn't win the main title, but they gave her something just as important. Miss Elegance 1950. That title came with prize money. And that money changed everything.